The Syrian civil war erupted March 15, 2011, and has had an enormous negative impact on Syria. With Bashar al-Assad as president for 30 years, pro-democracy protests turned to violence as the Syrian government tried to suppress these movements. Additionally, causes of the civil war have led to an effect on global implications, civilians in Syria, and the Syrian economy. The contributing factors of the Syrian civil war has been a result of the many pro-democracy and Islamic extremist groups against Syria's current president Bashar al-Assad. There has been calls for reform due to corruption and large amounts of unemployment. The strike of the civil war was a result of these uprisings for political reform and when the people's demand for democracy turned threatening. Violence, in particular, began after teens were tortured by the government for writing pro-democracy graffiti on the school wall. Protests began in defense for the young teens, and the Syrian government stepped in using weapons against demonstrators. This outraged many supporters to the teen boys, and many turned to conflict against the Syrian government. As the protests continued, the violence moved into a brutal civil war. Islamic extremist groups against the Syrian government began to rise for land and power across Syria. They used tactics that involved weaponry that has had a major effect on Syrian civilians and the Syrian government. Additionally, the constant battle between the Syrian government and Islamic groups have escalated into recent years, playing a damaging effect in Syria and neighboring countries. Since the beginning of the Syrian civil war and the emergence of ISIS, there has been a tremendous impact on the Syrian civilians. The overall negative effect on civilians is due to the chaos that has caused injuries, displacement, and death. More than 500,000 people have been killed in the 5.5-year duration of the civil war, according to Center of Civilians in Conflict. Additionally, Syrian government forces have dropped air bombs, targeting schools and grocery stores. Since the war has become, up to as many as 2 million children are lacking in education. Furthermore, as pro-Assad forces begin to target rebel-controlled areas, hospitals are also being targeted by air. According to the New York Times, at least 654 medical workers have been killed in these attacks, consequently causing a decrease in the amount of medical help that civilians have access to. As of January 2015, 565 people, states New York Times, have been starved, dehydrated, or at lack of medical care. With thousands more on the verge of death due to these causes, the risk of dying from preventable illnesses and dehydration is very high. Along with malnutrition, Syrians have been forced out of their country or have been internally displaced within Syria. More than 6.5 million civilians are internally displaced, and about 4.8 million have fled to neighboring countries, according to SyrianRefugees.edu. As the Syrian war has progressed, it has had an immense impact on the economy. To begin, unemployment rates have significantly decreased since the beginning of the civil war. The few that are still employed are highly educated Syrians looking to bring peace to Syria. Current education is hard to come by in Syria, as more than 2 million children are out of school. On the other hand, business that once brought profit to Syria's economy have moved their companies to countries such as Turkey and Egypt as a result of the violence. Additionally, agriculture has been a primary source of the gross domestic product in Syria, according to Jelena Kolev, an expert for the international trade at the Cologne Institute for Economic Research. This is because there is a constant need for more food, and throughout the war, the climate conditions have been very good. Moreover, oil production throughout Syria has had a significant decrease in recent years. Kolev states its production of 400,000 barrels per day before the war has now shrunk to less than half that figure. Finally, the Syrian economy has also impacted civilians medically. Europe has frozen Syrian bank accounts, preventing the ability to run medical services. This means that Syrians are even more at a need for medical attention, in addition to the several bombings of hospitals and medical staff in Syria. Throughout the duration of the war, there has been a major impact on global implications. To begin, the United States is both against the Syrian government and the Islamic State, so as the United States continues to fight, it is for the people of Syria and to the end of the Syrian war. However, Iran and Russia are directly involved in the Syrian war and have aided the government financially and have assisted in military advice. According to LiberationNews.org, Russia air support has allowed Syrian government to advance into Aleppo, which has been under rebel control in past years. Oil production has also played a role in shipment to other countries because, as mentioned earlier, oil has been significantly lowered due to violence. This has also affected the amount citizens of other developed countries pay for gas. Finally, as a result of the Syrian civil war, the economy in neighboring countries such as Germany, Lebanon, and Jordan have decreased. Jelena Kolev states in a recent article that Turkey has spent more than $40 million on refugee supplies a month. Lebanon has also lost more than $90,000 and Jordan $340,000 in transit exports through Syria, expressed Alex Young, journalist for themedialine.org. In addition, Lebanon has lost profit to their economy because of the loss of tourism to the coast of Lebanon because of the security restrictions. All in all, the Syrian civil war has had major effects on neighboring countries and countries all over the world. Overall, the long-lasting Syrian civil war has impacted Syria and global implications. Through massive killings and war between the Syrian government and Islamic State, hundreds of thousands of civilians have been killed, and the economy has been extremely damaged. Additionally, the cause of the civil war has led to a crisis in the economy of Syria.